In this video, I'll be giving you 10 tips on how you can get interesting and unique game ideas. Let's get right into it. So the first tip I have for you here today is inspiration from everyday life, so real life. For example, when you're working at a supermarket, you probably think like, how can I optimize my workflow or something? Even if it's something unrealistic, you can still get a nice game idea out of that. For example, you think, yeah, how can I optimize my workflow at the supermarket? And you come up with some ideas of some superpowers. So if you're a game developer, you can of course make that game idea into a game. So just take inspiration from real life, think, what would I like to do in real life that does not work in real life, but I can perhaps make it into a game? So the second tip I have is inspiration from books and films. Books and films are a really great way on getting great game ideas. For example, in 2017 I read a book, and since I read that book I wanted to create a game based on that book, but till now I haven't created the game because I was busy making other games, but I really have set that to my goal, creating that game. So how do you get great game ideas from reading books or watching films? Well, if you read a book or watch a film, whatever it is, there might be something that you really like about this film or book in particular, and just take that, what you really like about it, and think about how could you make that into a game idea. For example, if you watch a film about fishing and like there are sharks or something, perhaps you really like this film, you perhaps get the idea of making a game where you need to fish and not get caught by sharks or something. It just randomly came to my mind, don't ask. And the third tip I have is inspiration from other games. Like almost every gamer has that. You've played a game and you think, yes, that game is actually really great. You could change a few features from that game and make it into a new game. So I think every gamer has once had that they just think, yeah, that game is good, but those features annoy me and I'd like to have other features instead. Perhaps you can just change the game idea and make your own game out of a game inspired by a game that you've played. The fourth tip is mix up different words. What do I mean by that? Well, basically you can just write down a lot of words, for example, adjectives or verbs, colors, stuff like that. For example, red, orange, sunglasses and sharks, and summer or heat. And then you take a lot of words that you've written down, put them in the pot and pick 3 of these or 4 of these, and then for example you get the words red, soup and cat, and then you think, how do the words red, soup and cat fit together? And then you might get a nice game idea based on that. The fifth tip is dreams. What do you mean by dreams? Well, if you sleep at night, you usually dream. There are some people that can remember their dreams, what they've dreamed at night easily, and some that don't. And how can you get game ideas from dreams, you may ask? Well, dreams usually are completely weird rubbish your brain mixes up at night. So if you remember what you've dreamed and you think that's so ridiculous or so funny or just nice, then you can perhaps take that and somehow make a game idea out of that. And sometimes I also dream of playing games that really have interesting concepts, and then I make these dreams into games. And the sixth tip I have is mix up different game genres. So there are lots of game genres out there, for example RPG, strategy, sandbox, and a lot of them more. Tower defense, for example, also is one. And then you can perhaps you can take the genres RPG and strategy and mix them into an interesting game idea. The 7th tip is inspiration from giant paintings. Well, the paintings don't even have to be very giant, but just paintings. For example, you visit an art museum, if it's a rainy day or something, and then you take a look at paintings that are on the wall in that museum. And when you, for example, take a look at a giant painting, there are usually a lot of details in that painting, and you can, for example, in the right corner there is whatever, a child, and then there's people with swords and dragons and whatever, and you can just take a moment, look at that picture, and think about what does the picture represent, and perhaps if there are lots of elements in giant pictures, you can take these elements and create a game idea out of that and make that into a game idea, what you see on that painting. And the 8th tip I have for you is participate in game jams. Well, game jams are a really great way to get interesting game ideas. In game jams you usually get a theme or even a limitation. For example, you're only allowed to have 2 keyframe animations, or your character can only be controlled with 1 key on your keyboard, or themes such as one button mash, a game jam that I participated in that had that theme. And how do you get great ideas from themes? Well, you just take a theme and usually a lot of ideas will pop up into your head. Usually you get a not that complex idea because of that short time frame, so that's a really great way on how to get game ideas. It does not have to be in a game jam. You can also pick a theme or limit yourself just as a challenge, and you might get a really nice game idea that you can work on later. And the 9th tip is you can limit or challenge yourself. For example, only make a game that only consists of ragdolls, or a game without enemies, or a game without combat. Just limit yourself, get creative, and have fun, and then you can still later expand your game. Because if you have a limitation, you can really get great game ideas that you didn't thought of before. As the 10th and last game idea I have for you is uniqueness. Well, how do you achieve uniqueness with a game idea? Well, you can, for example, take main features from a favorite game genre, for example, tower defense, but then just take a main feature away, for example, being able to place down towers. And then you might get an idea, well, how can you make a tower defense game without having to place down towers? For example, the towers spawn, or you can upgrade them, or stuff like that. And I also have a bonus tip for you, the 11th tip, which I didn't mention, but just thank you for staying tuned to the end of that video almost. So the bonus tip is, take a game idea and put it into a different dimension. For example, you can take a game idea, a game that you really like to play, for example Among Us, and try to make Among Us in the 3rd dimension, which would be an interesting game idea. Or just take a 3D game, for example Rocket League, and make that in 2D, which will lead to some interesting results. So thank you all very much for watching. I hope these tips were helpful. Consider subscribing if these tips were helpful. I'm gonna make more game dev tip videos here on this channel, and also make sure you ring that bell so you don't miss the next game dev video. And then like if you liked and dislike if you didn't, and then I hope I'll see you soon. Bye bye.